Good morning. I'm Jim Peters, a member of the worship committee. My pronouns are he and him, and it is my pleasure to welcome one and all to this in-person and online service of the Unitarian Society of New Haven. Thank you for taking time to be here now. As we settle into this hour together, I have a few announcements to share. If you're visiting us for the first time, or perhaps new enough to USNH that you have questions about Unitarian Universalism and our congregation, a special welcome to you. After the service, you're warmly invited to help yourself to some salad and bread in the social hall and refreshments, and join us today in room 209, upstairs on the left, for our monthly visitors chat right after the service. Children are welcome to attend, and that's sponsored by our Connections team. We welcome all ages to this space. Know that in the back there is a space with activities and comfortable seating, and that the sounds of young people are appreciated as the voices of the future. Please know that the first pews on this side of the sanctuary are set aside for those wearing masks. You're of course welcome to mask up anywhere in the sanctuary, but if you're over there, it's required. And now, friends, Unitarian Universalists choose to speak of our congregation as a beloved community. One way we live into that is our intention to be mindful of the collective joys and sorrows we each carry. We will never know everything that we are all of us holding this morning, but we like to share what is offered by members in the belief that we can help each other by knowing each other through the ups and the downs of life. First, congratulations to Elijah Yaron Schwartz on his acceptance to the Eli Whitney Museum Apprenticeship Program. Elijah is in the 9th grade at North Haven High and a member of USNH's YRUU program. And also, I share the very sad news that Amy Glick lost her sister, Marilee Kaplan, on Friday, March 29th after a long illness. Marilee was a longtime, very active member of USNH. A memorial gathering is planned for Saturday, April 20th from 1 to 4 p.m. at Whitney Center's North Building in Hamden. Please talk with Jamie about more details. And also, please know that Reverend Stephen invites all members of our community to reach out to him for pastoral support whenever it's needed. And finally, friends, as I call up our ministerial intern, Sunny Joy McMillan, to share words calling us to worship, I want to remind us all that the ongoing work of our community requires our collective effort, our shared generosity. Ushers will be available in the back of the sanctuary after the service to receive plate donations. You are also invited to text a donation as explained in the order of service, or to mail a check right here to 700 Hartford Turnpike in Hamden. However you choose to support this community, your generosity is sincerely appreciated.
Good morning. I'm Sunny, the ministerial intern here at USNH. My pronouns are she and her. I call us to worship this morning, and we light the chalice with words from Ralph Waldo Emerson's Divinity School address given to the senior class at Harvard Divinity College back in 1838. It is my duty to say to you that the need was never greater of new revelation than now. From the views I have already expressed, you will infer the sad conviction, which I share, I believe, with many, of the universal decay and now almost death of faith in our society. The soul is not preached. The church seems to totter to its fall, almost all life extinct. In how many churches, by how many prophets, tell me, is man made sensible that he is an infinite soul, that the earth and heavens are passing into his mind, that he is drinking forever the soul of God? Where now sounds the persuasion that by its very melody in paradises my heart, and so affirms its own origin in heaven. Where shall I hear words such as in elder ages drew men to leave all and follow? The test of true faith certainly should be its power to charm and command the soul. The faith should blend with the light of rising and of setting suns, with the flying cloud, the singing bird, and the breath of flowers. Now let us do what we can to rekindle the smoldering, nigh quenched fire on the altar. The evils of the church that now is are manifest. The question returns, what shall we do? I confess, all attempts to project and establish a cultus with new rites and forms seem to me vain. Rather, let the breath of new life be breathed by you through the forms already existing. For once you are alive, you shall find they shall become plastic and new. The remedy to their deformity is first soul, and second soul, and evermore soul. As we enter this sacred space this morning, may we be reminded that the earth and heavens are passing through our minds. May we rekindle the smoldering fire in the altar of our hearts. And no matter what the future holds for religion, may we each find a life-giving faith of our own understanding to carry us forward. And now I invite you to rise in body and spirit and sing 145, As Tranquil Streams.
We are a community of many beliefs, many perspectives, many opinions, gathered together by our commitment to holding a space that's inclusive and supportive and responsive, both to each other and to the wider world. It's that commitment, that covenant, that is the foundation of our life and community. Each week we recite together a brief version of our written covenant. While the following words express our intentions in writing, the covenant comes to life in the choices, the words, the actions we take one with another.
Friends, in the year 2017, a colleague of mine published a paper for religious educators that was entitled "The Death of Sunday School." She argued in this paper that it was far past time for Unitarian Universalists and even other denominations to take a deep look at what we have traditionally offered as religious education. She argued that very few people are actually coming to congregations these days. People are busier, people are otherwise occupied, and that religious education as we know it is ending. She argued for different models, say having game nights on Friday nights, having music offerings on Wednesdays. I saw this in many ways as a deep sadness for what I had, grown up with. And in the scales of my own mind, I saw it as a heavy stone that began to really tip my own scales in favor of the negative, what we're losing, what's not here anymore. It was so tempting to view it that way as, yep, that's it, we're done. So I decided, before making any big decisions here, and before talking to people and saying, well, what are we going to take away from our religious education program at USNH? I decided to do a little bit of a deep dive. So one thing I did was I compiled a whole list of emails that I've received from parents explaining why they haven't come to certain activities or to our religious education. And as I read through, the first line of each one said, "I'm so sorry I can't be at fill in the blank." But then if you read past that, you realize we can't be there this Sunday because we're all feeling sick and we need time to heal. We can't be there this Sunday because we have a family obligation, and it's a tradition that we've done this for years and years. We can't be there this Sunday because we're out doing a river cleanup. We can't be there this Sunday because we're participating in the Rock to Rock bike ride. We can't be there this Sunday because we are out running, raising funds against hunger. We can't be there this Sunday because we're out doing the vote activities, getting people to vote. We can't be there this Sunday because we're participating in a river cleanup, and on and on. And I had this kind of light bulb go on that said, all of these things translate to, if we're not there, it's because we're out doing Unitarian Universalism, living it, being it. The classroom space that we offer here, the activities that we offer here, continue to be a very vital part of many people's routine. People do come here. It may not be every week. It may not be every single activity. But they do still come. And I still hear from people. The other day, walking out of the religious education classes, I saw 3 children skipping down the hallway singing one of the songs they had just sung in class. This year, I've been asked by 4 students to write recommendations for them for programmings, including, you heard about Elijah, who's going to be working at the Whitney internship program. Another one of our students, Declan, also asked me to write a recommendation to him for the same program. We've had other students that are participating in weekly and weekend activities. I've been asked this year to write 3 recommendations for college for students. And I'm happy to report that all 3 of those students got into the schools of their choice and are going out to do and to live and to be Unitarian Universalism in this world. These are bingo numbers, ironically. The thing is that for a long time, we've fallen into a familiar pattern or trap of judging the success of this movement by who's in the building on a particular day. How many kids are coming? That's the first question I get asked when I meet with colleagues. How many kids do you have? What's your attendance like? And I've begun to respond to that question with another question. I'm wondering, who's still involved in the movement in any way, shape, or form? And when you ask that second question, you realize that there's a much richer, broader, and deeper answer. Because are we getting letters from people saying, not interested in USNH anymore, please withdraw my children from the program? No. What we are getting is people saying, we are going to be there when we can, and when we're not, it's because we're out doing, living, and being Unitarian Universalism. So let's all do, be, breathe, and live this movement, my friends, whether we are physically here in the building or out there doing it. Would you please join me in singing the children that are here this morning out to their classes? Now, but you may have noticed, by the way, I want to point something out. There haven't been that many children in the sanctuary at the beginning of services, and that's because we're running 2 Our Whole Lives OWL classes that have, because of the length of their programs, they start right at 10:30. So everybody who is in 4th grade and above is already up there in their classes. So don't worry if you only see 2 or 3 kids in here from time to time now. But with that, let us sing the ones who are here out with Go Now in Peace. Go now in peace, go now in peace, may the Spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Now in peace, now in peace, may the God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. My name is Reverend Stephen Kendrick. My pronouns are he and his. I'm so sorry I couldn't be here today. I'm out astral traveling. Wait a minute, well, I am here. You know, the meditation in the middle of the service is probably the most important thing that ministers do, not the sermon, because it's the one place where we put our hearts, where we take the moment to pause, to dwell in silence, and to go deep. This is not normally the kind of meditation that I would wish to present, but it is a meditation that presents itself in my heart this morning. We've been hearing a lot about hostages 6 months ago, amidst the death of so many Israelis on that October morning. Over 200 were taken in a surprise raid by Hamas. Some, too few, of these hostages have returned home. Some, we know, have died. Most exist in a limbo that we can only dimly imagine, in the midst of a crisis that truly affects the entire world. In those 6 months, there have been other hostages taken. They are the people of Gaza, with the borders sealed off, with food and water and electricity cut, with homes and offices and hospitals raised. We know that over 13,000 children have died and over 32,000 Gazans. We know that operations are happening in Gaza where amputation of limbs are happening without anesthesia. Hamas survives, it seems, but the hostages are still enduring. But nearly 1 million now face famine. The United Nations says that despite other areas in the world, areas like Sudan and others, it is actually in Gaza, a relatively small space, where the most starvation in the world is occurring now. We can be hostages in so many ways. We can be hostages to old ideas of religion that give us somehow the right to impose these draconian and cruel measures upon one another, sometimes in the name of God, sometimes in the name of nationality and ideology. But I know one thing. To call for a ceasefire is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that conveys strength of purpose, moral clarity, and prophetic vision. We can be hostages to so many things in this life. We can be hostages to cruelty, and we can become inured to silence. The main thing is each of us, wherever we stand on this traumatic, gut-wrenching issue of where there are no apparent easy answers, one thing that we cannot do is to become a hostage to silence. We know other things. We know that people will break free eventually, or die trying, with the world watching. We know that war is always cruel, but it can be waged in ways that pay attention, yes, to Geneva Conventions, but most importantly to the ancient prophetic traditions that still abide and must not be ignored. We know that human beings deserve life and dignity, and they deserve agency over their fate. Destruction leads only to destruction. Depriving populations in these ways, they don't win hearts and minds. They create the seeds of retribution and radical response to come. So we must, all of us, refuse in this sense to be hostages. We must find our voice. We must ask for this moral clarity. We must ask for a ceasefire. We must ask that people not be starved in the name of war. We must refuse to be hostages to this elemental inhumanity. That war can never be this kind of answer. No one, least of all me, has any answer that works for everyone in every instance. But we know one thing: the starvation must stop, and a ceasefire must be tried so that the world and these people and all of us together may go free. And whatever you feel and however this affects your heart, let us hold silence together.
Our reading today is a responsive reading. We'll be working with number 670 in your gray hymnal, The Way, by Scottish poet and novelist Edwin Muir. And for those who wish to participate, you're welcome to stay seated. I'll read the plain font and you can read the italics. Friend, I have lost the way.
The way leads on.
Is there another way?
The way is on.
I must retrace the track.
It's lost and gone.
Back, I must travel back. Then I'll make here my place.
The road runs on.
Stand still and set my face.
The road leads on.
Stay here, forever stay.
None stays here. None.
I cannot find the way.
The way
O places I have passed, and what will come at last. And now the USNH Choir.
Makes me so happy to be a New Englander when I hear that. Oh. Thank you, William, for that beautiful piece after the meditation. So God calls up the Pope. I've got good news and some bad news, God says. I've decided that there should be one church and one religion. No more confusion. And the Pope says, that's wonderful. And God says, well, the bad news, I'm calling from Salt Lake City. People talk a lot about, the decline of organized religion, and this is nothing new. You heard it in the opening words from Emerson. You may remember Lenny Bruce, the late 1950s comedian who said, every day people are leaving the church and going back to God. And this week, I read a fascinating article in The Atlantic about a poll from the Public Research for Religion. Over 1/4 of Americans now are unaffiliated, describing themselves as atheist, agnostic, nuns, whatever you want to call them. And I thought, wow, we're in that double mixture because we're also described in often these ways, but we're affiliated. Here we are. But there was two sentences in there that really affected me. It said, more Americans have converted out of religion than have converted to all forms of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam combined. No faith's evangelism has been as successful in this century as religious skepticism. That is a really powerful sentence. But, I don't want to preach to you about that in particular, because that's kind of inside baseball. I suspect not a single person in this room thought, I think I'd like to come out this morning and hear a sermon about the decline of organized religion. That's not what this is about. Not at all. I want to describe a dynamic that's much deeper and richer than that, and that has threaded all through the creation of religion and the dissolution of religion, because religions, like people, have their birth, their golden age, their vitality, often their decline, sometimes their mortality. Religions come and go. But I want to talk about something else, even beyond that. I've been very lucky in my life to have published 6 books, but along the way have been scattered many tomes that I never wrote. And the one that I feel very affectionate about was called Holy Rebels. Rebels they were. For the Buddha, called Siddhartha Gautama, and the Christ, called Jesus, or as he would have been known in his own Jewish time, Joshua Bar Joseph. These two figures were holy rebels. They were ignored in their own country of origin. Christianity hardly exists in Palestine, and Buddhism hardly exists in India. They were fighters and reformers. Jesus within the Judaism of his day, and the Buddha in his Hinduism. Each was a teacher. They taught every day. They spoke in the common language. Jesus in Aramaic, and the Buddha in the language of his people. Neither ever wrote a book or built a temple. They were wanderers. And as they taught outside to small circles of people. Both are today seen as divinities, but I don't believe in their self-sense that they thought of themselves in that way. But what have we done? We have managed, in our own creativity and sometimes perversity, to find rituals and ceremonies and dogmas and creeds to encase them, to rein them in. I believe that they would each be shocked to see what is formed around them. Jesus said, the Spirit blows where it will. And the Buddha said, if you wish to know the divine, feel the wind on your face and the warm sun on your hand. Their revelation was immediate. It was not about building buildings. And we, because it is our nature, attempt in clumsy, sometimes well-intentioned and sometimes not, ways to rush in to where the spiritual wind has blown in its aliveness and in its energy, and we build our edifices our social hierarchies, our clergies, our rituals, and our liturgies. It is said that the devil once went for a walk, and they saw, as he walked with a friend, a man ahead of them stoop down and pick up something from the ground. "What did that man find?" asked the friend. "Well, he found," said the devil, "a piece of truth." "Well, doesn't that disturb you?" "Oh, no," said the devil. "I shall let him make a belief out of it." And that's the way it is. So what would these holy rebels have thought? What would they like about what has grown topsy-turvy around them? I wonder. It's only human nature, what we've done in the East and in the West. These prophets and teachers were so free, so alluring, so challenging, that we have in each case, for the Buddha and for the Christ, within 300 years of their death, created around them gospels and beliefs that serve sometimes to separate us from the origin, the energy, the power of their insight. We've even done them disservice in calling them gods, because that's a way of separating them from us. But they were rebels before they were divinities. And if we wish to understand the spiritual revolution that they attempted to bring, each to their own time, to the people that they loved and walked amongst, we will try to understand the spiritual revolution that is still happening all around us. When people say, "Stephen, don't you worry about the future of religion?" I say, well, as long as human beings wonder where life comes from, as long as they look at a baby and wonder, as long as we sit by our dying mothers and fathers and hold their hands, as long as we confront the challenges I described in the meditation of war and famine and deep-seated inhumanity to one another, as long as human beings are that way and live in this way, the instinct to come together, to seek higher truth, will never go away. Religions are born and they die, but the spiritual wind still blows. We have an instinctive need to be together, to learn, to grow, to be compassionate. The Buddha said at last, we must find within ourselves the golden mean. We must find a balance. We must find serenity. He said, everything is extraordinarily clear. I see the whole landscape before me. I see my hands and my feet, my toes. I smell the rich river mud. I feel a sense of tremendous strangeness and wonder in being alive. Wonder of wonders. This enlightenment is the nature of all. No wonder the Hindu priests of the time were mystified, perplexed, and ignored him. Buddhism never took hold in India itself. He was a rebel. Anybody is who attempts to live with faith and by the Spirit, because you have to be willing to be an explorer, a questioner, not to be obnoxious, not to be annoying, not to be perverse, but to attempt to tap into the spark of divine energy, to give it a chance to catch, to set the soul afire, and if we're lucky, the people we love and the society and times in which we find ourselves. That's why that meditation was designed the way it was, because we have to find ways to unmute ourselves, to tap into the deepest sources of humanity. We can't go asleep when people suffer. True faith is not superstitious. It is not bound to the past. It's not encased in creeds. It's dynamic. It's open to change. And it is deeply compassionate. Jesus said, don't put your wine in old wineskins. They're going to break. They're going to rend. They will burst and spill the essentials. Find a new way. We've been singing it as Unitarian Universalists for a long time. And the phrase, revelation is not sealed. It arrives daily, and it must be unsealed daily in the same way. The Buddha said, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Meaning, find the essence within you. Don't surrender yourself to others, but find and catch the soul wind yourself. The Buddha said, I make no promises and remind you that there is no external savior. You should rely on yourselves to do as I have done myself. That is why we are here. Nothing has changed. The same existential questions that confronted them confront us now. And the challenge is still in place. Human nature hasn't changed very much. We still need to become holy rebels. To free religion whenever it descends into mere belief instead of life and vitality. And if religion, as we inherit it, does not demand spiritual change and acts of true and even shocking acts of love and forgiveness, then guess what? It becomes a rather stale, inhumane, dry, deadly faith. Jesus looked at the religious leaders that inherited the temple and its laws and strictures, and he said one of the most shocking metaphors I've ever encountered. He said, looking at those who were ready to condemn him, you are like whited sepulchres. You contain the dust of your forebears. Pretty harsh. Religion, like human nature, demands much, asks much, demands much. It demands really a rebirth of the Spirit, where the Spirit blows over and over. True religion demands that the old religion die away so that the new and creative can have a chance to literally shake and rattle people to their bones. When you sense your faith is getting way too comfortable and oh so lovely, watch out. Religion cannot become our cocoon, our crutch, our lovely gilded tomb. The divine message works to awaken us, not to cower us into imitation and rote. I remember once, many years ago, walking late at night in New York City with my friend Forrest Church, and we were talking about a book he had just written. And I said, Forrest, you know, you're a Unitarian minister, why'd you talk so much about Jesus? And he said, well, for one reason. Now, normally I want to add a footnote here. You only hear the word Jesus in a Unitarian church when the minister drops something heavy on their foot. But Forrest stopped me in the street. It was about midnight, and he said, when someone came up to Jesus and asked why he should follow, he did not make a theological assertion, nor did he give a doctrine of heaven or life after death, nor did he talk about the nature of God or the nature of prayer. You know what he answered? Go out and feed the poor, visit the sick, and don't forget the prisoners. That was the test. That's it. And the Buddha said, trod the path, and you will make it. Truth and reality are in you now. You, he said, are the Buddha nature. Practice right living and right speech and simple things, and you will find it. The practice will get you there. The place where reality and compassion are one. They weren't rebels to be rebellious. They acted as if faith and realization both mattered. And so they became honest and bold, loving, and willing to speak their truth. And nothing has changed for us. I'm not talking about them because they're saviors. I'm talking about them because they walk just like we do. The end of religion is the opportunity for the rebirth of the Spirit. The end of nothing but the completeness of all. They did not come to destroy anything. They came to build, to complete, and to lift up. For them, the Spirit was always going to be greater than the religion that they inherited, the religion that was around them, and the religion that they could not even dream of being built around them. Yesterday, in reading for this sermon, I was really struck by a story where the Buddha was approached, and one of the possible disciples and adherents came and said, "Can you give me a doctrine of life after death?" And the Buddha was silent, refused to answer. And finally, the potential student went away. And they said, Why did you not answer? Buddha said, that person wanted a theory. I only answer people that want to help. If all the religions of the world were to be suddenly and completely stripped away, I do not doubt for one moment that the golden rule would arise again in the human hearts, that the spiritual wind cannot be silenced. And if all the rituals and liturgies and creeds and cathedrals ever built, no matter how lovely and fetching and alluring they are, were they suddenly to collapse, even our own edifice, I do not believe for a minute that the spiritual wind will not catch us up and lift us to help our hearts discover the true light, our true nature. So, be bold, be truthful, be trustful. The end of religion, I believe, is the wind of the Spirit blowing free, as it will, as it must, as it shall be. Amen. Number 21, slightly different melody than the choir gave us. For the Beauty of the Earth, number 21. Please rise as you are able.
And now I invite you to say with me the words printed in your order of service for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Now may peace which passes all understanding keep your hearts and minds in the knowledge of love. Let's all be together at 3:25 tomorrow. I think something shady is going to be going on. Amen and go in peace. Easy.